2 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock, and welcome. It's a Thursday morning here in the nature island of the Caribbean. It is the 9th of December 2021, the 9th day in the final month of the year 2021. Trust that everyone had a wonderful evening. Thus far, having a blessed and productive day. Welcome to Talking Points. My name is Kimara Ito. And this morning we have guests with us. This morning we'll be speaking more about COP 2026. Of course, discussion will be narrowed down on the implementing agreement to the Paris Agreement between the Swiss Confederation and the Commonwealth of Dominica. We'll be indulging in some discussion as we go throughout the program Talking Points. 1-800-327-448-3284. That's a line provided by Flo Dominica. We'll take a quick break and we'll acknowledge our sponsors of Talking Point this morning and say good morning to the panel. They will introduce themselves this morning and we'll get into our discussion. Talking Points, the line made possible compliments of Flo Dominica. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. As mentioned, we have guests this morning, and we're joined by three good guests this morning. The highlight will be about CREAD, the COP 2016, and of course, as mentioned earlier on, an agreement to the Paris between the Swiss Confederation and the Commonwealth of Dominica. We'll be indulging in some discussion this morning, so we do hope that you will participate. Again, the number is 1-800-327-448-3284. And our guest this morning from the CREAD CEO, Francine Savarin, and Honorable Cozier Frederick, the Minister of Environment, Rural Modernisation and the Kalinago Upliftment, and also Michael Savarin, a National Program Coordinator of the Green Climate Fund. Let's go and say good morning to our guest on Talking Point. Good morning.
Good morning, Kimara. Good morning to the listeners of DBS Radio.
Okay, good morning to you and welcome to Talking Point.
Good morning, Kimara, and good morning to the listeners of DBS Radio and fellow Dominicans.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. And of course, we are joined by Michael Savarin as well. Good morning to you, Mr. Savarin.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you much.
Okay, it's always a pleasure, and welcome to another Talking Point. It's always a pleasure when we have a CREAD being the highlight of a discussion, as we know that this time around the climate change has become the focus of the world, and coming from COP 26, of course, we'll be hearing much more about the COP 26. Of course, it's a framework convention on climate change that was held over 2 weeks. At its core, it's a formal negotiation session for countries to advance their climate commitments and actions. And it also has become an important forum for a wide variety of stakeholders around the world to gather and discuss the climate crisis and solutions. So how important was it for small island developing states like Dominica to be present and represented at COP 26?
Kimara, if I want to start off the conversation, I would want to enunciate that Dominica's posturing as and its intent to be the first climate resilient country is one that is on the forefront of this present administration, and so to be part and parcel of a conversation that seeks to inform the world in that entire movement is one that is very important for an island like ours. We are a small state, however, we have enunciated that very ambitious goal, and we are seeing a number of countries doing bits and pieces to add some value to that entire movement. So for us, this kind of conversation, this kind of meeting of parties is important for us because we continue to highlight within the international discussion our relevance as a small island developing state, and also the leadership that we have to look at climate change issues. And so for us, we saw this as a platform to keep telling that particular narrative and to seek positive partnerships in moving that ambitious goal forward.
Okay, thank you. We know that climate change is real, and everyone is trying to play their part. So CREAD has the agent here in Dominica leading the way forward to the goal of becoming the first climate resilient country or state in the world. How are we on track towards that goal?
So, Kimara, the country has been on the path to become climate resilient since after Hurricane Maria. So the National Resilience Development Strategy was developed by the government, and CREAD, working in conjunction with government, then translated that into a climate resilience recovery plan. And in that climate resilient recovery plan, we have identified 20 targets that we want to reach by 2030. Now, there are a number of important targets that we want to achieve, and we have been on that journey since 2018, looking at the different interventions that are necessary to allow us to achieve that. So we're looking, for example, at how do we build strong communities? How do we build a robust economy? Ensuring we have well-planned and durable infrastructure. And there are a number of different initiatives that have been identified that we want to achieve. And under the targets, for example, we want to ensure that there's zero climate-related fatalities from extreme weather events. We are ensuring that communities are able to operate independently for up to 15 days post-extreme weather event, and individuals able to revert to basic living standards within 4 days. So the importance of having strong communities is critical to ensure that we're able to bounce back and bounce forward quickly after disaster. So we've been working, for example, with communities in conjunction with the local government, ensuring that communities have disaster committees, disaster management plans in place, identifying areas of vulnerabilities and what interventions are needed to make communities much more resilient. We're also looking as well at what other plans, policies, and that need to be aligned with the resilience initiative. So institutionalizing resilience is key to ensure that everybody is moving in the same direction, to ensure that resilience is incorporated in every facet of the work that is done at the ministry level. COP26 is very important for our small states. We have seen the more intense hurricanes that we have experienced as a result of the warming of the climate. Where the world is now at 1.1 degrees. We have been advocating and arguing and seeking to convince others to make changes to their behavior and activities that they are engaged in to ensure that we limit the rising global temperatures to not more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. For us, that is critical because the scientists have warned that anything beyond that threshold would result in calamities like deadly heat waves, water shortages, ecosystem collapse. And of course, for us in the Caribbean who are exposed to hurricanes on a yearly basis, more intense and more frequent hurricanes. So the COP26 is a convening of countries where issues can be discussed around the issues of global warming, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and seeking to convince countries, particularly the major emitters in the world, that they have to adapt and their practices and to reduce the emissions, and therefore, by doing so, limit the impact on the climate. And this is critical for us as small states, as I indicated, because we're are on the front lines of climate change, being exposed to the hurricanes. We have low-lying states that when the sea level rise occurs, we will have damage to our coast. In some instances, there are countries who will completely disappear as a result of sea level rise. There are countries who are not as fortunate as we are in having numerous water sources, and those countries will suffer devastating impact of droughts. So for us, small island states, this is an existential threat, and therefore we need to continue to make our voices heard on those issues. Thank you, Kimara.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Barron. We all know that, from the 2017 or maybe even before, we can go back as far as maybe when we had the trough with Ophelia, that it was alarming to everyone. And now that we're hearing from the UN Secretary General calling the recent report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change a code red for humanity. We have with us Mr. Michael Savarin, who is the National Program Coordinator, Green Climate Fund. Mr. Savarin, if you could just indulge us a bit as to, the role of the Green Climate Fund in ensuring that Dominica is and sticks on path to becoming the first climate resilient country.
Yes, well, thank you so very much for that question. A very important question indeed. So as the scenario very well described by Honorable Barron, the countries, as she indicated, have signed up, have indicated what their commitments will be towards reducing greenhouse gases as part of trying to contain the global warming. However, what has been recognized is that in order to do that, it would mean a transition to a different kind of economy, essentially moving away from high emitting sources to low carbon economy. That aspect, to do that, requires financing. And because of this general recognition, the Green Climate Fund was created as that important vehicle, providing the necessary finance and capacity development to facilitate countries in meeting their ambitions and their targets. So the targets are what is called national determined contributions. And every 5 years, countries report on what their target is, what their targets are, and then in the succeeding 5 years, report on how successful or not they have been in achieving those targets. So the GCF provides the financing to allow countries to assist in making that transition. So that the role of GCF is absolutely critical. In the case of Dominica, we have developed a national country program. The country program reflects all the policy documents mentioned by Honorable Barron, and the specific projects, and we try to apply to get to the targets. Because we, notwithstanding the fact that we are not a major polluter, I think the principle is that all countries make an effort to reduce greenhouse gases. But for us in Dominica, we've always seen that as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to transit towards low carbon, particularly looking at our geothermal resources. So that for us is an opportunity for economic transformation and developing the kind of diversity of economic opportunity and sources of economic growth.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Savarin. Dominica's envoy was featured in two key events at COP26, the Overseas Development Institute, ODI, and of course, CREAD signing a Memorandum of Understanding, which can be considered a milestone. How significant are these two features to Dominica?
Thank you for that question, Kimara. We would have participated at COP in a number of events that spoke to the resilience ambition of small states, that spoke to the road that we've been on to building resilience. And it's important for us to have the opportunity to have these discussions, to see where the synergies are with what other persons are doing in that space, and also to share our experience. You mentioned the MOU that was signed with Chemistry Green Limited at COP, and for us that was significant. As you would know, Dominica has significant geothermal resources, and we have been exploring the development of the geothermal resource in the south of the island in the valley and in the Rosa Valley. But Dominica has, I'm advised, 6 geothermal reservoirs. We've only been exploring one in the Rosa Valley, but we have 5 others that are there to be explored. And from all reports, we have significant geothermal reserves. There are a number of areas for development in the geothermal space. And the MOU that we have signed with Chemistry Green Limited, which is a company based out of Trinidad that has extensive experience and an interest in developing geothermal potential, is geared towards firstly doing an assessment of what options are available and what the resource potential might be for Dominica, and potential for partnership with Trinidad and Tobago, particularly in the area of green hydrogen production and ammonia. As you may know, there is great need for green hydrogen in Trinidad, and so there exists the potential for us to develop green hydrogen in Dominica that can be exported to Trinidad. But beyond that, there are other options available for development of geothermal that looks at the development of ammonia. It looks at the development of synthetic fuels like ethanol and methanol. And really, we have the potential in Dominica with geothermal to have this drive a green industrialization of Dominica. And when we speak, for example, in our climate resilience recovery plan about developing a robust economy, an economy that is diversified, we have the ability, with utilizing our geothermal resources, to fund a green industrialization of Dominica, which is right in line with our resilience objectives, which looks at green and clean energy that can drive new industries and attract not only business locally, but attract others to come into Dominica to take advantage of these resources that we have, and have Dominica serve within the Caribbean as really the poster child for green industries. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Frederick, we know that you were at COP COP26, and of course the deal was linked by yourself as the Minister for the Environment, Rural Modernization and Kalinago Upliftment. Give us, what exactly the agreement. There's an agreement to help Switzerland meet its Paris Agreement emissions pledge. And tell us more about that.
So yes, Kimara and listeners, the framework of this is very, very important. This stems out of the Article 6 agreement in Paris. So after 6 years of very difficult technical and negotiations, the UN talks at COP26 itself in Glasgow finally gave us a very strong Paris Agreement rulebook, and that rulebook it seeks to deal with the international cooperation through carbon markets and call on countries to make specific and urgent measures to address dangerous climate change. So that's the important point here. So because of that rule book and that condition, we can make international cooperation. And so, in essence, they agreed Article 6 rules that, and I must say that while it's not perfect, and give countries like ours the tools we need for environmental integrity, to avoid double counting and ultimately to clear a path to get some private capital funding flowing for our developing countries. And so the carbon market rules allow countries to focus their efforts on ambitious implementation of their emission cutting targets. So that, in a sense, is what that agreement is about. To tee off the Paris Agreement and have an opportunity where sovereign nations can partner with other countries, other agencies to work toward that goal. So the agreement, in essence, was to ensure that we had a formal agreement signed with Switzerland, and to set the tone and to set sort of the parameters for our future engagements as it relates directly to Article 6, because it is important that, and Ambassador Barr mentioned that because of all of the climate change issues, we see more disastrous storms and floods, etc. So it is important to factor that in. And so as we speak, the agreement on Article 6 provides the rules necessary for robust and transparent and accountable carbon markets, and to promote more and faster climate ambitions. And I would argue that to create a venue for finance flows from the developed countries. And in a sense, Mr. Seven spoke about this too, that the need for financing is so important. And that's why Article 6 and that agreement within that construct of Article 6 is important for our countries. And so we see that the decision to eliminate double counting for compliance markets and establish a strong framework to ensure appropriate accounting for our vulnerable carbon markets also supports the emission reduction in countries hosting carbon market activities. So that kind of agreement will do that. And so the carryover credits left from the Green Climate Development mechanism is not fully restricted. And so we see that more than 120 million tons are carried forward. And so when we use that within the construct of moving a climate resilient country. And so that agreement is sort of a first step, a big step for a country like ours, and especially as we continue within the country itself to understand the various aspects of the Article 6 and how it rolls out. And I must say, Jamara, this was COP26, and so it means that we have been at this and other issues for a long time, and there will be many more parties committees of partnerships coming from this. And so we have done this baby step, and I want to commend the leadership of Michael Savarin on this to ensure that we had that agreement come to the fore. And I think we have leadership within the government itself, and the Prime Minister, and the Cabinet Ministers, and the technical officers like Savarin, and strong advocates like Ambassador Baron. We could see, I want to see a sort of light at the end of the tunnel as we continue to push forward with our goal to be the first climate resilient country.
Honorable Frederick, you mentioned that it's baby steps, and maybe Ambassador Barron and maybe Mr. Savarin can chime in with this. Baby steps, but we as a small island developing states, Dominica, at the COP26 with a voice to, ensure that, there are means and ways that we can bring some solutions to climate change and combating climate change. More specifically, knowing the fact that we are small islands, we are not the main contributors to the effects of climate change and what is happening, but we seem to have collectively a strong voice as to ensuring that the effects of climate change are being heard at conferences such as COP26. How else can we, baby steps with the agreements as mentioned, to really ensure that, that our concerns are at the forefront. We remain on target, on path to becoming the first climate resilience country. How else and what else can be done?
I think, Kimara, that we may be small states in the Caribbean, but we have ensured that we have made our voices heard in international fora across the world. And I think that we being on the front line of the impact of climate change gives us the authority to speak on those issues, because for us, our people are the ones feeling the brunt of climate change. When you look at larger countries who are not experiencing the same impact that we are, and they are the major contributors. We have taken the position, particularly at events like COP, to argue for loss and damage to clause that speaks to providing compensation to our small states for the impact of climate change. This has not yet found favor, but it's something that we believe that, we certainly will continue to pursue. Because look, if you just look at what has happened, or what happened to Dominica or just the Caribbean in 2017 with Irma and Maria, and the amount of damage that was sustained by the islands who were directly hit by those storms. And when one links that to the to global warming and those storms being intensified as a result of climate change, and one thinks that, look, the climate change and its impact is caused by the emissions of larger countries, then there is really a moral responsibility on these larger countries to assist smaller states to recover from the impact of these storms, and also to help us to adapt and to mitigate the harmful impacts. And so at whatever fora we are at, whether it be at the United Nations, at the OAS, at the Commonwealth, in bilateral and multilateral fora, we have to continue to make the case for support to small states to adapt, and also to encourage larger states to reduce their emissions, to be able to reduce the impact on global warming. The COP26 agreement has not taken us to where we want to be, which is to limit the impact, limit global warming to not more than 1.5 degrees. Even with that, the impact on us is still significant, because we are at 1.1 now, and we saw what Irma, Maria, Dorian did to the Caribbean, even at 1.1. So we have to continue to advocate for that. I think one of the good things coming out of the agreement in Glasgow was to agree to revisit emission reduction plans in 2022 to try to keep the 1.5 degree Paris Agreement target achievable. So we're hoping that when you have COP27 next year in Egypt, that countries will come to the table with additional plans and pledges to reduce their emissions even more and help take us to that goal of reaching no more than 1.5 degrees.
Yes, and Kimara, I just want to add to that bit of the conversation, is that just for the listening public, that we have two main goals at the UN, at the COP26. And so one of the main goals was to cut off the carbon emissions by half, at least by 2030, which would require about 45% reduction of the carbon emissions itself. And so we're hoping that by 2050, we'd have the emissions cut off down to 0%. Now, the second goal of that conference was to increase the assistance to the poorest countries in terms of climate crisis, and so that we as small countries can adapt and spend money to address the damages caused by climate change. However, the climate change was pledged 100 billion a year in 2009. I was said that this assistance would be effective by 2020. However, it has been postponed again at this COP to 2023. So as a result of this, countries like ours were affected by climate change and were hardest hit and not getting the benefits out of that commitment. So we see that it appears that these larger countries are not committing to those agreements, and that's why it's important for us to be at these conversations, to keep on articulating the need for financing to push our own agenda forward, because the agenda for us is basically, as small island developers, is to stay alive. And so we have been partnering, and we.
Hello, Mr. Frederick.
Southern country as Dominica, wanting to be the first climate resilient country, but we also have a voice within the alliance of small island states who have similar situations like ours. And I'd argued at one point that Dominica seems to encapsulate all of these island states, because we have all of the trappings of their particular demography, etc. And again, we have the history of being hit by everything nature had to throw at us in terms of natural disasters. So it is within that context we have to look at the conversation and to participate and to understand that we are not in this alone, but we keep on making the point that we are being affected, and finance is an issue, and also the understanding of the roadmap and everybody playing a part in having that roadmap flow out nicely is important for our country.
Thank you so much, Mr. Frederick. Mr. Michael, Mr. Savarin?
Yes. Yes, am I here? Yeah. So what that brings the bilateral agreement into focus, because the general consensus was not obtained. So that is what Dominica is doing with Switzerland is so pioneering, because while there has not been consensus on the overall agreement mentioned by Frederick, what we have done and what Switzerland have done is say, you know what, we are still going to move forward nonetheless between countries, because the Paris Agreement, Article 6, allows for voluntary agreements between individual countries to participate and collaborate in reducing emissions, while the general negotiations referenced to by the minister and Honorable Baron speaking to general broad consensus among all countries. So what we've done is pioneering in Switzerland, and there are 66 nations, is to say, you know what, we're going to move forward nonetheless, even if there's a general agreement, and partner in a way that is mutually beneficial. So with in the case of the bilateral agreement, what it looks like is that transformative projects. So the idea is to not look at low-hanging fruits, minor projects, but interventions that will transform the low carbon landscape and also the economic landscape, which is why it's so very important for us. And it is not just limited to carbon offsets of the market value of the carbon offset. So let's, for example, we move from low carbon transport. Instead of having fossil fuels, we move into electric vehicles. So the difference in terms of the carbon emissions, which is it is valued in the carbon market, can be provided to us in terms of revenues to make them sustainable. The transition to low carbon transport sustainable. But beyond that, the Switzerland support will provide comprehensive financial and other kinds of support to beyond just the value of the carbon emissions, but financial support to undertake and to ensure the transformation of a particular sector towards low carbon. So as you may know by now, we have launched a national low carbon transport project with both the support of Switzerland and the Green Climate Fund. We are at the data gathering stage right now to collect specific information data to guide the actual transformation, because you need specific information and data about number of vehicles there are, gasoline usage, how many miles people travel, what is the cost of the vehicles, very, very detailed information. And we have consultant, Mr. Winston, working with greater consultants out there in the field, and we have individuals in the field from various communities going house to house collecting the data. We urge folks to fill information as requested, and so we can get the data that we can feed back into constructing the appropriate kind of financing arrangement to allow us to transit to low carbon transportation. And this is limited across sectors. This is for walking, this is voluntary transportation, this is non-motorized transportation like bicycles, motorized vehicles like motorbikes, cars, cargo carrying vehicles, vessels, possibly looking at mass transit and perhaps electric trams. Very comprehensive. Look, we need that data. We need the public to support us in this, and we can then get the right kind of financing structure to ensure that this alternative is competitive and with existing fossil fuel alternatives. That's just one area, and there'll be other areas that the Switzerland government or mutual partnership collaboration will allow us to transform various sectors through that bilateral support. So it's while there is in broad consensus, we saw the need to participate bilaterally to move and achieve those targets. At the same time, underscoring for us getting for Dominica the financial support to allow us to transit to a low carbon economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Savarin. Of course, I just want to remind our listeners that this is a talking point for today, Thursday, the 9th of December. We are speaking with Ambassador Francine Baron, CEO of CREAD, the Honorable Minister of Environment, Rural Modernisation and Kalinago Upliftment, Cozier Frederick, and Mr. Michael Savarin, who is the National Program Coordinator of the Green Climate Fund. Now that COP26 it's over and coming from COP26, what is next for CREAD, next for the Ministry of Environment, and of course the Green Climate Fund?
Well, COP was just one aspect of the many things that we are involved in. Coming out of COP and the MOU that we have signed with Chemistry Green Limited, we're pursuing further discussions with them in terms of developing the relationship and hopefully securing a visit of their of persons from the organization to Dominica in January of next year. We have been working closely with the Commonwealth Secretariat in respect of looking at our legislation to ensure that our legislation is aligned with our resilience objectives, to see where there are gaps that may need to be addressed, and also working with the ministries to align strategic plans to our resilience agenda as well. So this is part of ensuring that resilience is institutionalized, so that we ensure that the necessary steps are taken to allow us to achieve our targets by 2030. We have also been working, as you may be aware, on major capital projects, and that work is ongoing. We are in the preparatory stages for work on the Louvier to Bagatelle Road, which has been long anticipated. But we expect that work on that will start by next year. And of course, you would have seen the progress made on the hurricane shelters in Jimmet and in Cassibruce. And those, I think Jimmet should be ready this month, and Cassibruce will be ready early in the new year. And we're also supervising the project for the East Coast Road, which is a major project for the east of the island that will bring benefits to residents in that area. We continue our work in terms of our Community Emergency Readiness Initiative, as I spoke to earlier in this program. And we continue to collaborate with the various ministries to build capacity and to look at streamlining policies and procedures and of course working in numerous areas. We also developing an island resilience scorecard, which will monitor our progress towards achieving resilience by 2030. So we'll be able to identify this soil baseline where we are now and see how we are progressing towards achieving some of our goals by 2030. We're working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture in the development of Dominica as a global center for agriculture resilience, the GICA, which falls very much in line with the new agricultural policy that was recently approved by the cabinet, and also the development of the transformation strategy. And of course, we have been working with the micro, small and medium enterprises. We've provided financial management training to them. We are working on the development of a database, which will be very important for providing information that will provide more targeted support to MSMEs. An online survey was released earlier last month, and we're hoping that the public will have already begun to provide the information that's necessary to develop that database, because that database is going to be useful to allow us and government to help the development of that sector. The data is critical and important for in every sector, because data helps to guide policy and to determine where support may be necessary. So I'm really encouraging the public to participate in the online survey and provide the necessary information. We're also developing a MSME handbook, and that handbook would provide information for businesses as to the key elements that are necessary for their business, particularly for new businesses. What are the tax requirements? What are the financial requirements in terms of how you do your bookkeeping, and many other things that are useful to know for businesses, so that you almost have a guidebook to starting a new business. We're also developing training on financial management that will be which will be videotaped and available online, so persons can have access to that, because it's important for accessing financing from financial institutions that your books are kept in a proper format, and that you in seeking to ensure that your business is profitable, that you manage your finances properly. So we're providing support in that area as well. There are a number of other things that we are involved in, and we will continue to discuss and talk about with the public as they continue to develop.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Barron. Honorable Frederick, the Ministry of Environment is one of the ministries leading in this goal by 2030, along with CREAD. What's next coming from COP26?
From COP26, we are we keep on pursuing some of our existing projects. We are charged with overseeing and managing and coordinating the DBRP. DBRP is the vulnerable reduction project, and the major part of the works this time around is the East Coast Road. So we're pushing that and ensuring that we do all that is necessary to work within the framework of protecting the environment, etc. And within that project, we have done some serious work in monitoring the climate activities. So we do have seismic monitoring devices across the country, also advanced flood warning systems. So all of that is we are partnered with the ODM to do all of those. So we will keep on doing this as we are trying to ensure that the public is pretty much alert to implement hazardous weather conditions. So the DVRP pushing this forward. We are also working in partnership with the UNDP to push a number of projects. We did the SSE project, and we also did we're also doing a climate resilient project in the Kalinago territory, as we seek to make that community much more resilient. We're doing also a hurricane shelter in the eastern part of the country, also within the Kalinago space, working with the Caribbean Development Bank. So we do all of these. All of these are preparing the population and the citizenry for adverse weather conditions. We're doing more work with the Solid Swiss Confederation. This is also under our charge, and we are ensuring that the risk management becomes a critical part of the conversation, because this is one of the issues we have to face as we continue to develop housing developments and other infrastructure works. So these are important things for us here. And so as a very young ministry, we realize our role is sort of really diverse. We have to do a lot of collaborations across land ministries, and so we've been partnering with the Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Agriculture, and all of those various health, etc., all of those departments to ensure that the ultimate goal of making Dominica climate resilient country is important. And we will continue to represent that goal at various fora. So the technical staff at the Ministry of Environment pursue a lot of those initiatives, and we are engaged in a number of conversations as relates to soil protection, the rainforest protection. At the COPs this year, the Director of Forestry, which is also on the charge of the ministry, was able to interact with the coalition for rainforest, which Dominica is a part of, and we're seeking to continue to do the inventory of the rainforest, the endemic species there, and to continue developing a solid and very robust reforestation program. So we call it on citizens to participate in that venture to ensure that we can protect what remains of our pristine environment. So we have all of those initiatives across the board. So the various departments, including the NEP, which we have a cadre of young people and who participate in various activities from road maintenance, vegetation management to the big part and parcel of the public sector. So we keep on doing this within the ministry to ensure that there's a sort of excitement about the importance of the environment and how we can participate in various ways. We've been able to partner with a number of schools and village councils in the reforestation and beautification programs. And so the NEP ties in nicely with the community development work and also the work at forestry. So we are doing all of this at the ministry. And the ultimate goal, however, is to eventually be able to table the environmental bill, which will bring to the fore the establishment eventually of a department of the environment, and also to have a sort of a trust fund that will be able to garner resources for the important work of dealing with the environmental situation that we have, and especially as it relates to keeping nature island and pushing toward the ultimate goal of being the first climate resilient country. So, in a nutshell, this is the work of the ministry. It keeps going. We are committed staff who are leading in the process and who are pushing forward. So at this point, thank the PS, Major Favor, who will be pushing and guiding a lot in that movement. Senior technical officer Edgar Hunter, senior policy advisor Kenisha Thomas, and the environment officers there at the ministry who tirelessly do the work, putting the hard work in the background to ensure that we do our part in ensuring that very ambitious goal in being the first climate country it will be realized within the time frame that we have spoken about.
Thank you so much, Honorable Frederick. Mr. Savarin, the Green Climate Fund plays an integral role in all that was mentioned by Ambassador Barron and Honorable Frederick. What's next for the Green Climate Fund?
Yeah, and also clarify, the Green Climate Fund operating within the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development, Climate Resilience, Sustainable Development, and Renewable Energy. Just to say that we have the investment committee. We have submitted, I mentioned earlier, we have developed a national country program and submitted it to the Green Climate Fund, incorporating the projects and programs identified in our major national policy documents as have been articulated. The GCF has what we call GCF period 1 and GCF period 2. GCF period 1 is up until 2020, until to 2023, where they look at financing particular projects, and GCF period 2, which is 2023 beyond. The investment committee of the Green Climate Fund has basically agreed to finance 7 projects, 77 major paradigm shifting interventions by 2023. We are working actively with a number of our partners, accredited partners, in developing and finalizing those proposals and making sure we get them to do finance. We have a Dominica Climate Resilient Enhancement Project, which is $10 million being done with work with the 5 Cs on this. It looks at the 9 communities that were completely devastated both by Maria and Erica. We hope to get that to the Green Climate Board by June for approval. So we're hoping towards the second half of next year to have this $10 million approved for direct interventions in the 9 communities that were very destroyed. In addition to that, we are working with UNEP on an integrated climate resilient coastal zone management program. That's about $40 million. Again, to look at the coastal environment, look at stakeholders there and livelihoods impacts because of extreme climate conditions, and seek to restore some of the marine environment that have been destroyed, and also where you have perhaps some pollution to restore some of the habitats, as well as looking at some of the riparian zones and riparian forest, and look at intervention. So that will fit nicely into the integrated the coastal Blue Economy Master Plan and the coastal plans that have been developed with the Ministry of Blue and Green Economy via the OECS support. There's a National Oceans Governance Committee that has been done throughout the OECS setup to really look at ocean governance and blue economy interventions. What that GCF intervention will do, it will give capacity to this National Oceans Governance Committee to be able to execute and implement marine spatial plans and coastal development plans as we transit to the blue economy objectives. We're also looking at an integrated climate adaptation resilience intervention program that looks at the 3 sectors: health, education, and agriculture. We realize that if ministries operate in silos, the resilience is sort of compromised. If we can have a situation where the ministries are more integrated in terms of the service delivery, where they rely more on each other, as opposed to in silos and the external capacity development, external resources, and so forth, then it reduces our resilience. So again, we're working with a number of partners on this, working with PAHO, UNICEF, and the FAO in developing that project to advance to the Green Climate Fund. We are also working with the Global Green Growth Institute to develop a national financing vehicle. And the national financing vehicle will seek to obtain a variety of financing instruments, soft loans, concessional loans, guarantees, letters of credit, equity, and grants for feasibility studies to finance the various plans that have been discussed, and to allow the private sector to really play an important role it needs to play in the transformational exercise to resilience. We're hoping to raise $300 million for that national financing vehicle. The GGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, just signed a contract with the firm ROA Partners that will be, in fact, be developing the vehicle. So we hope to commence work on that shortly. We also, I mentioned before, the National Low Carbon Transport Project. Of course, also we will begin early in the year an economic feasibility analysis of a green industrial eco park, and also commence additional geothermal resource mapping beginning in the north, and have a framework for the comprehensive mapping of all our geothermal reservoir resources. Very important that we understand what we have so we can plan how to optimize the resources. So that will come out of that exercise. Importantly as well, we are looking at a climate resilient housing project. We know that the World Bank project targeted initially, I think, 1,700 homes for the vulnerable, a complete rebuild. That was whittled down to, I think, a smaller number. What we hope to do is to complement that and meet the amount that was, in fact, to get the full 1,700 homes addressed as a first phase. And the second phase, phase two, maybe in the GCF period 2, which is beyond 2023, we'll perhaps look at how do we ensure that homes that were repaired, maybe not up to Cat 5 standards with the new codes, how can we in fact provide some sort of financing arrangement to ensure that on the private sector side, private homes can in fact do that, be able to do that. We also are partnered with the so that's what we'll do in GCF period 1. We are partnering with Jamaica Stock Exchange for GCF support to allow the Jamaica Stock Exchange to issue green bonds. It's typically when companies have access to green bonds, they can be able to get financing on more favorable terms, not confined, more flexibility, there's more flexibility, and really it gives room for the private sector to do more. The consultants have been engaged on that project, and we hope at some point in next year that Jamaica Stock Exchange will come to Dominica to address mid-private sector folks and also the public sector to inform how in fact green bond issues can be placed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So at GCF period 1 up to 2023, 7 projects. A key focus is a climate finance ecosystem I have mentioned previous, to allow the private sector to play an important role in the transformation to a low carbon and climate resilient economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Savarin. Of course, we are coming to the end of this Talking Point program for today. Just give us your final statements, Honorable Frederick and Ambassador Barron and Mr. Savarin.
Kimara, I just want to thank DBS for allowing CREAD to bring these matters before the public for discussion and for providing information. You have been very good to us during this year. I think we've had 11 programs on Talking Point where we have had in partnership with government departments and in some instances the private sector, we've been able to come on the program on Talking Point to speak to the public about what CREAD is doing, what Dominica is doing, what the ministry is doing, to just provide information and to have the opportunity to hear from the public as well. So I really want to thank DBS. I also want to thank our donor partners who have made it possible in partnership with the government to for CREAD to be here. Their support is critical. They actually visited Dominica last week, and they were able to visit some of the projects and meet with people who are benefiting directly from the support that they are giving. So we want to say a thank you to the governments of the United Kingdom and of Canada and their representatives in Barbados, who have been working very closely with CREAD and Dominica in supporting us on our resilience journey. And I want, last but not least, to thank the team at CREAD. We have a group of dedicated professionals who are actively playing their part in supporting Dominica on its resilience journey. So I really want to thank the team for all their hard work over the last years, and in particular this year. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and we would definitely want to have the opportunity to come back on DBS in the new year to continue to speak about what CREAD is doing in partnership with the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Baron. Honorable Frederick.
Thank you, Kimara. Thank you to the listening public this morning to DBS Radio. I'm happy to have come on board here and to share the experience at the COP and how it relates to our small island state. It's an important part of Dominica's journey to be part of the conversation at a very high level. And so I really want to thank for the opportunity to be here, and also to highlight that we do have a program every Friday for the ministry. We do that at 11 o'clock every Friday, and that program hopes to enlighten folks about the importance of preserving the environment and the importance of protecting the nature that we've been entrusted with. So it's important for everyone to play their part. I will confirm that at the policy level within the House of Cabinet, we are true to the task, but we also need the support of the citizenry in doing what they can. First, understanding the importance of protecting that trust asset that we have at the nature island, and secondly, to play their part in adding some value to the conversation, and adding some value to their daily lives by practicing good habits that will ensure that we can protect this wonderful lands for future generations. So it's an exciting time for Dominica. It's an exciting time to be part of governance, and it's an exciting time to be doing the work that needs to be done for the CCO to keep Dominica on its path. And we're doing all of this, Kimara and the listeners, within the confines, the very, very tight confines of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I just want to call out to my constituents, to the citizens of Dominica, to take on the COVID-19 protocol seriously, to get vaccinated, and to ensure that we are able to continue to work within a safe and protected environment. Thank you so much, listeners. Thank you very much, and also thank you very much, Ambassador Baron and Michael Savarin for this work to allow me to participate in this wonderful conversation. Because at the end, we're doing this to ensure that Dominica is on the right path to be the first climate resilient country.
Thank you so much, Honorable Frederick. Mr. Savarin, your final words.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a great privilege and to explain what interventions are taking place across ministries in terms of moving towards climate resilience. From the GCF perspective, we want to appeal to stakeholders, NGOs, private sector, and all to keep abreast try to keep you abreast as to what's going on, and there is opportunity here for personal development while engaging national transformation towards low resilience. Please, we'll bring this opportunity to you And we look forward to you participating and taking hold of these opportunities and being as part of this transformational process towards low carbon and low climate resilience economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we should have Miss Karen May, the communications lead, just to wrap up things for us. Karen, are you there?
I am here, Kimara.
Okay.
Kimara, actually, the CEO would have done my wrap up for me.
Okay.
So I just want to echo her sentiments in thanking the Honorable Minister and Mr. Savarin for joining us today on this program. Of course, to the listeners who have definitely, been committed to the CREAD programs on DBS every time that we have come on. As the CEO correctly said, we've been on for 11 out of the 12 months of the year. We look forward to doing this again with DBS next year. And yeah, we just want to thank the loyal listeners and of course all Dominicans who are with us on this resilience journey.
Thank you so much, Karen, and looking forward to more partnership and collaboration with CREAD and all our partner agents as we continue to fight and forge ahead to be making Dominica become the first climate resilience country. Thank you so much, our guests this morning. Do wish you all a blessed and productive day.
Thank you.
Okay, Talking Point comes to an end this morning. We thank again our guests, Ambassador Francine Baron, CEO of CREAD, the Honorable Cozier Frederick, Minister of Environment, Rural Modernisation and Kalinago Upliftment, and Michael Savarin, the National Program Coordinator of the Green Climate Fund. And we thank you, our listeners, for another program of Talking Point. Stay tuned to DBS. Just want to remind you the line made possible compliments Flow Dominica.